So one of the things that we've done here with this station in particular is co-hosted it with the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce. And a great partnership. In fact, we just had a wonderful event recently where we had a number of folks at a mixer, and it's part of teamwork. There's not a us versus them at all. This is about figuring out how to work together, how to make it best. And one of the folks that we'd like to introduce and bring forward.
Pardon me, happy to come up, please don't read that, just.
Oh, okay. And so Maggie Parker has been a great friend. Maggie's been around for a long time helping us and helped our chamber, and we just want to say welcome to Maggie and thank you. Come on up, Maggie.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much, John and the Dulles Chamber. I am here representing the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce, and just going to take you on a quick tour to show you the economic impact that this Silver Line is bringing to our region. And I am now working for the Reston Community Center, delighted to be there, but for about a dozen years, I was with one of the big developers on the Silver Line who tackled the Wheelie Station project and started it. Well, it is a public-private partnership with the county. They also happen to have a new development with state-of-the-art out at the Ashburn station. So phase 1 and phase 2. But I just thought I'd give you a little background about what you can do to really emphasize the impact and what the business community needs to do to make it work. To give you an idea, in 2011, so 11 years ago, this is what you were looking at over at Wheelie, that now hosts 4 high-rises, and they're building more across the street. This was a 750-car surface parking lot that at the time drove 0 tax revenue into the county coffers. And within 3 years, once the garage was built and the thing started going up on top, at that point, it was delivering $100,000. And it's exponential, the growth, as things come online. For example, this was the Sunset Hills Professional Center, maybe? Was that what we called it, Joe? And this is just a block from the metro station, and well, it's no more because it's going to be one of the JW Marriott's landmark hotels. And this is all because of that economic engine that is the Silver Line. So, but it's important to see how it enters and what the business community has to do to make it grow. The line arrives. We are responsible for being the biggest champions of this program. WMATA has had some bumps, some issues. Every single major transit system in the world has them. Perhaps ours were a bit bigger, maybe we weren't managed as well as we could be, but we are not unusual. New York City depends on it, they're falling apart. Unless we speak to it, and thank heaven for people like Congressman Connolly, who might demand a little things that become a little bit better, but is still committed to making it work. And the business community really needs to step up, needs to speak about it to its employees, to its other partners. If somebody's coming in from the airport, have them take the metro to your location. It will be faster in most cases. So that piece of dirt that produced 0 revenue for the county, in 20 years, this is what it will become, and that's 20 years from 2011. The goal is to have this finished by the end of the 2020s. And it's just amazing what this Silver Line can drive. And again, I can't express to you how much the business community, with the chambers of commerce representing them, are key to making this Silver Line project successful, to ramping up the ridership. But we've got to support. There are great messages that come out from Metro all the time. It is an excellent system. It was never intended to be the full solution to transportation. It is one piece of a multimodal solution. Roads and asphalt are important. Buses are important. This is a key piece also. So, quickly, to finish out, please know that you and your chambers are the conduits to business. You speak to your employees, they go out and speak to their neighbors, and they talk to their families, and that's how the word gets spread. Let's not be negative Nellies. WMATA has better tools than ever. They were really supportive not supportive, they were very good at marketing their product during the phase 1 entry, and the Chambers of Commerce were very involved with that. The Reston Chamber was. They are doing the same for phase 2. They have right now scheduled 324 parties, festivals, businesses, events scheduled to go and have the table set up and spread the word. They this morning introduced some maps that will go at each of the stations that is just a terrific thing that shows the station, shows the bus network, shows the kiss and ride parking or the real parking, shows the neighborhood streets. I can tell you that that was perhaps the biggest challenge for about 4 years after the station opened over at Reston Station. They have a ton of apps with real-time data, so your person could sit there and say, I want to go here, when's the train coming, how long is it going to take? Again, the better maps. We as chamber members, really the chamber can lead the way in being the repository for transportation information and specifically metro information. Be the respected source in the community. Have a feature in your weekly newsletter. But we are the ambassadors, and it's important to make it work. Thanks for the time, and thank you to the Dulles Chamber and to the Reston Chamber for trusting me with their message.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Congressman Jerry Conley. He is serving his 7th term in the House of Representatives from Virginia's 11th District, which represents Fairfax County, Prince William County, and the city of Fairfax. Prior to his election to Congress, he served 14 years on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, including 5 years as a chairman. Throughout his career, protecting and growing Northern Virginia's economy has been his top priority. In Congress, he has played a key role in securing federal dollars for transportation improvements in Northern Virginia, including completion of the Fairfax County Parkway, widening of Prince William County Parkway, providing ongoing support for rail to Dulles, and securing the annual federal commitment of $150 million for the regional metro station. Please welcome Congressman Jerry Conley.
Thank you, Georgia, and hello, everybody. Good to be back in person again. And I was given the assignment of talking a little bit about the Silver Line and and maybe Metro. And I when I first ran for the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors in 1995, rail to Dulles was as dead could be. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody. We had tried and we had failed. Lots of people had tried and they all failed. And so I decided to run on a platform that said, rail to Dulles is my #1 priority. And now I represented Providence District, which includes Tyson's. So there was a certain logic to that. But I could see that Fairfax County not being linked to Metro was a huge problem for both Fairfax if we were going to develop the Dulles corridor in an enlightened way, and for Metro. When I made that my top priority, Fairfax had 4 stations, And they were all in the east, and not all of them were actually in Fairfax County. That meant we were really out of sync with other jurisdictions. So take Arlington. I forget, I'm going to make it up, but it's something like this. Arlington has 26 stations in a very small jurisdiction, which means that anyone who works or lives in Arlington is within walking distance of a metro station. In Fairfax, we were the opposite, right? A county with several hundred square miles, the chances are you live nowhere near and work nowhere near a metro station. And if there was a corridor that had to be served by metro, and that was our linkage, it was the Dulles corridor. It was already the most important economic corridor in the region outside of downtown Washington. And if you look out to the future, a transit line guarantees that the Dulles corridor becomes an economic engine. And of course, the airport. It always bothered me. I did a lot of international work, both on the Hill and in private sector. You know, you go to Paris at Charles de Gaulle Airport, there's a metro link to Paris that the federal government paid for. You go to Heathrow in London, and there's a metro link to downtown London that the federal government paid for. You know, Narita Airport in Tokyo, the federal government paid for fast transit to downtown Tokyo. On and on. Rome, you name the city, they all did it. But here, we designated Dulles Airport in 1962 as to be the premier international airport of the nation's capital, the capital of the free world, 1962. And there was a little document where somebody kind of spitballed, like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but maybe there should be a link, I don't know, you know, with the city in transit. Now here we are 60 years later, and we have yet to open that link to Loudon Airport. We've built it, thank God, but it took 60 years. I can assure you, our competition doesn't take 60 years to make major investments that make sense like that. And by the time we built the Silver Line, the federal government had changed the rules. So the original Metro core downtown had 80% construction money from the federal government. In the case of rail to Dulles, the federal government was no more than 20%, and they capped it at $900 million, which meant if you want a rail link to the premier airport of the nation's capital, Fairfax, Loudon, you pay for it. So we had to figure out tax districts. I mean, no wonder everyone thought it was dead. Multi-billion-dollar project. So we roll up our sleeves and we actually start to revive the idea, and that no, things have changed, we can do it, we're committed. And we got the General Assembly to agree to a tax rate for a special tax district, but then we had to create the special tax district, and that was the beginning of the problems. So we wanted a unitary tax district because we wanted a unitary project. We didn't want to bifurcate it, because the risk was if we bifurcated it, say, to Tysons or Reston, the rest of it would never get built, and Herndon would be left in the dark. But unfortunately, at that time, when we proposed the unitary tax district, we had an overwhelming business support in Tysons and Reston, but Herndon vetoed it. And any one jurisdiction had the power to veto. And so we no longer had a unitary tax district. We had to then create two. We got the first one approved, but the second one took several years of nudging and persuading and cajoling and threatening and everything else. We finally got it done, but it did delay everything by several years. And we had environmental challenges. During the George W. Bush years, they believed that tolling was the answer to everything, and they didn't like transit. And so it was moving heaven and earth to get them to keep the project in the queue. But we had to meet financial and ridership projections, and everyone who had a new neat idea that cost money threatened the project, because the Bush administration was looking for any excuse to say, we can't do it. And we did a lot of sweet talking with Bush administration officials, and we kept it alive. And then a developer decided, you know what, we need to put this all underground. And of course, you know, if you don't know any better and you're not thinking about the mechanics of building something, you think, yeah, well, we should do it underground. And this particular developer actually claimed that he had engineers who had looked at it who said tunneling underground would be cheaper than building it above ground. Now, I was, I think, chairman by then, and I said, bring those engineers to us and testify. I want to hear them testify to that, because I don't know an engineer in the world who thinks tunneling underground is cheaper than doing something above ground. And so we did a study. There was huge public support, you know, under, not above. And we're thinking, you're going to kill the project, because Bush is still in the White House and they don't want to do it. And this will add hundreds of millions of dollars to the cost. Well, sure enough, the study that we commissioned, that we all agreed would abide by, said, well, actually, we have mixed face soil and Tysons, which means it's very loose. And when you put a big bore, you know, that's, you know, 12, 15 feet, 20 feet in circumference, every time it swirls that kind of mixed face soil, it creates cement. And that means you have to stop and scrape it off, these huge blades, adding enormous costs, and of course, eating up time. And they concluded it simply was not practical to do anything underground that was being proposed. But that took a couple of years. And meanwhile, every time we delayed, we had to do another environmental study. Any change we made, we had to do an environmental impact statement showing that change didn't, cause greenhouse gas worldwide. Anyway, it took a long time. And there were skeptics and critics all along the way. We were sued at one point by a group of people, one of whom is actually on the Board of Supervisors with Walter, not that Walter had anything to do with it, to stop us. So we had to deal with lawsuits. So getting it done was, for me, was a great lesson. Doing big things is hard. And if you're in public life, doing big things that you might not even live to see, you might not be around to cut that ribbon, but you know it is our future, really hard. And there were a handful of people in public life who really, at the time, made a difference. Kate Hanley, my predecessor as chairman of the board, the late Senator John Warner, our two governors, Tim Kaine and Mark Warner, and now senators, Frank Wolf, congressman, Jim Moran, congressman, really critical players in just staying with it. So we had bipartisan support, but it was, at times, a lonely mission. Why is it so important? Well, Maggie was showing you some pictures. If you did a ride today along the route, you can see how underutilized land was. Tysons and further out Route 7 was all just huge parking lots and car dealers. Not the best use of land in an urban area where so much potential exists. And so we then matched the approval of the Silver Line with a plan. And we came up with, I think, a visionary plan. Initially, the one for Tysons, Reston has its own, and Herndon has its own. But in the corridor, we're looking at, right now, a projection of 10 million new square feet of stuff. And the good news is it's mixed-use development. For the first time, we're going to be able to have lots of residential development on the line itself. Those people are going to be metro users. So we're creating ridership. We're trying to get rid of the dysfunction in the corridor, and I'll use Tysons as an example. So when I started doing this, Tysons is bigger than downtown Boston, my hometown. Boston has, 700,000 people. Tysons had 17,000, but 150,000 who commute there every day. So that meant 150,000 people descended on Tysons, 2 ways in, 2 ways out, at exactly the same time in the morning. and went home every night at exactly the same time, and we were surprised at congestion. So it was a successful commercial and retail center, but nobody lived there. And there was nothing in the evening to siphon off traffic or keep people late. So the Tyson's plan says, we're gonna make Tyson's a thriving urban area with 100,000 people, at least. We're gonna have restaurants. We didn't have a grocery store in Tyson's. We now have, I think, 4. We're going to have a grid of streets to siphon off traffic from 123 and 7. We're going to have a walkable community, and Metro has helped that with the new stations because you can walk them either side, right, which you couldn't do before. I used to work in Tyson's, and I could overlook Route 7, and I'd look across Route 7 and I wonder what those people are doing. How do they live? But you wouldn't think to walk to a restaurant across Route 7. So being able to do that opens up all kinds of possibilities. And we're going to see, if you want to see sort of the future, the Cap 1 development is a mini city within a city. It's extraordinary. It's exciting. Hotel, restaurants, a beer garden on the 7th floor, all kinds of things. Amenities that we didn't have before and couldn't even imagine. The energy being unleashed by the Silver Line will be forever. It will be a gift that keeps on giving. The return on that investment, that $3 billion plus investment, will be approaching infinite. The tax revenue it will generate will help keep down pressure on our real estate taxes and finance schools and other amenities. I think, Walter, we're thinking just Tyson's alone will generate about, when it's all done, an extra $1 billion a year for Fairfax County government. So it's very consequential, and it was essential. But it required some people with vision. And, even I'll take aside myself for a minute, but, encouraging vision in the business community among our citizenry and with elected officials, requires attention. Looking toward the future and asking people to trust that that investment's going to have huge payoff and helping them see it. I mean, one of the things I got the people who finally were managing the project was, mock up some drawings so people can see what a station would look like. Help them visualize what we're talking about so that it demystifies it and all of a sudden it captures the imagination. And that made a huge difference in public attitudes. So we're about to, actually complete the second phase of Rail to Dulles, and then the hard work begins to exploit it, to make the Dulles corridor environmentally smart, lots of mixed-use development, lots of residential development, along with retail and commercial, and an economically successful model for other communities all around the United States. That is the power of this transit investment. And it is so important for our future, for Northern Virginia's future, for Metro's future. Maggie mentioned, I think, a little bit an accountability piece. I'm a strong supporter of Metro, always have been. I fought hard in the pandemic to get transit funding in our COVID relief bills, and I want to say we covered every penny of the huge deficit Metro had for 2 years. Metro didn't have to lay off a single person, and they were talking about laying off thousands. Metro didn't have to close a single station. Metro didn't have to cut back on service because the federal government took up 100% of the slack. Thank you. But the one piece I exacted was, okay, but I want a vigorous audit function within Metro. Y'all have to be accountable for this money. Because you need the credibility with the public and with local governments who are being asked to subsidize Metro big time, that when you ask for another dollar, we have confidence that dollar will be well invested because we know, your audits are telling us you're using resources wisely. And unfortunately, historically, Metro has not really, they've been kind of reluctant about that. And as Maggie indicated, in the infrastructure bill we passed, my Metro bill guaranteeing the $150 million capital investment by the federal government matched by the localities is good for 10 years. And we even threw in a little extra that they would qualify for once they establish an independent Inspector General's office, so that you always have somebody who has independence and ensures accountability. And of course, thank you. I got one person who favors independence and accountability. And you also know how important that is, because the Congress insisted, after tragic accidents in Metro, to create a safety commission. And that safety commission is the one that uncovered the problem with the 7000 series and some other problems that Metro had not acknowledged, even though they sat on that knowledge for 6 months, telling nobody. So I love Metro. I want Metro. I gave my whole career to getting the Silver Line done. I put everything on the line, and if I'd fallen on my face, my career would have been over, because I thought it was that important. But we also need to make sure that there's public accountability, because there are lots of public money flowing into Metro and will as we go out to the future. But just keep one thing in mind, and I'm talking to Reston and Dulles Chambers business people who understand ROI, right? When you make an investment, there's a return on it. You know, the federal government made an investment in the internet. It's called DARPANet. Originally, it was a defense network. And someone saw the commercial applicability, and the rest is history. And whatever that investment cost the federal government, fully funded by the federal government, it's certainly worth it. And the return on it is approaching infinity. I mean, I don't even know how you put a dollar value on what do you think, you know, I invested X. What's the multiple of X in terms of the return on internet? Metro may not be quite the same, but if you look at the original Metro and what it did to land values, what it did to commercial activity, what it did to spurring growth and people wanting to move back to the city and live in it, it's extraordinary. And we're going to experience something similar, different because we get different models, in the most vibrant corridor in Northern Virginia, and indeed, I would argue, in the region, metropolitan region. We want to make sure we're on a steady path. The opening of Silver Line is an anchor we will all come to appreciate and be grateful for. And for those of you who were there, and Walter Alcorn's one of them, because he was on the Planning Commission during some of those difficult years and now represents us here so ably in Hunter Mills District. Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to stand up for something that long-term is going to improve the quality of life in all of Northern Virginia and our communities. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you. You want me to take questions? I'm happy to take a few questions if people have questions or comments. Yeah. Well, I don't think that's a question for me. I can answer what I've done. I went to bat for transit. It was zero in the COVID relief bills. Metro alone, I think, got $2.8 billion to cover their deficit during the pandemic. My bill became law as part of the infrastructure bill, providing $150 million matched for capital investment. I've always been on record as favoring the federal government becoming a full partner in the operating subsidies, because I think the federal government gets a free ride, right? So why would it be logical that Maryland, DC, and the participating jurisdictions in Northern Virginia subsidize the operations, but the federal government does not? We don't contribute a dime to operations. I think that's wrong. We should have to do our fair share. If we did, that deficit you're projecting would significantly be reduced. You know, longer term, to your other question about how do we guarantee the viability of the Silver Line in terms of ridership? And by the way, I'm enthusiastic about what you said about the museums. I'm We'll try to work with you and others on that. I'd love that. And I agree with you, we can't simply rely on commuters. But here's the thing. Reliability and safety problems became such an issue that we had huge ridership fall-off. So if you had other alternatives, you got off Metro. The only people left for a while were the people who had no alternatives. And that's not healthy for the Metro system. So restoring reliability, safety in all respects is really important. For example, why I said we need a strong independent IG, Inspector General. Well, because we uncovered the fact that Metro Police were not fully reporting crimes on the Metro system. Now, I'm old enough to remember when Metro opened, we were so proudful of the fact that it was clean and totally safe, that no one would even think to bring, a sandwich or a yogurt or a cup of, because well, we're far from that. And so I've talked about a culture of mediocrity that management allowed over the years to set in on the whole Metro system, especially customer service and safety, and reliability. So we have to get back to a very high standard of reliability so you can count on it, and you're not worried about safety for yourself personally or for that train or anything else. And customer service, we need people who love their customers and treat them with respect and dignity. And so reversing that culture is going to take time, but we have to do it. We got to work with everybody involved to make that happen. If you do that, people are going to be happy to use Metro again. They're going to use it for short runs and they're going to use it for long commutes. So, for example, I worked for a company that had offices both in Tysons and here in Reston. They would have gladly told all their employees who had to go back and forth for meetings, take the train. Don't even think about driving. Why would you do that? The train's very reliable and it's one stop. So those kinds of mini commutes are also going to be important. And as you said, looking at other sites or creations that generate traffic that aren't commuting even are really important. So I take the Metro, of course I do, to go to those museums or to certainly go to the airport or whatever. So all of that's related. But none of that negates the wisdom, I think, of making this investment. Because if we hadn't made it, I believe, frankly, the logic of Fairfax continuing to provide the subsidies it did started to erode with taxpayers. What do we get out of it? We're not served by it. DC is, Arlington is, Maryland is, but we're not. The Dulles Corridor changes that. And I think 6 new stations are going to open as we get to the airport. And so, and we benefit from it in terms of the economic investment it's going to generate. I think we have to work toward it, but I'd rather have that problem than starting from scratch and persuading people we should make this investment. So I want to make sure it does work. I think you asked fair questions, and I think the answers are complex, but they require political will, political leadership, and they also require some management commitment to quality and excellence at Metro. Well, first of all, I think that will change as education models also change. So I think there will be satellite adjuncts of universities to help serve the burgeoning technology population that we've got. I don't know what their specific plans are, but I think your point is well taken. The Dulles Corridor is not only an economic engine, but you're right, it's a technology engine. We now compete with the Silicon Valley. I forget which, but either they have more jobs, but we have more companies, or they have more companies and we have more jobs. But I mean, we're that close, And more, where I work on the Hill, I've made information technology one of my lanes in modernizing federal IT. So I interact with these companies all the time, and more of them are looking at us to locate, expand, or relocate. My old company, SAIC, was a California-based company. It relocated to Tysons and Reston, and then split, and the new company also relocated here. So the more we make it desirable, the better. We have a good foundation in the educational, the higher educational system we have, and with our school system. You know, Fairfax had the wisdom and the vision, our citizens and our governing body over the years, to make strategic investments in education. And you know this too, when a company comes here and thinks about maybe relocating here, headquarters or otherwise, the first question they ask is, tell me about your schools. And so having high-performing schools really matters. George Mason University, you know, sort of like Northern Virginia, you know, grew up almost overnight. So here was a small commuter school of very little note. It is now the biggest university in Virginia, with enormous capacity for kids to stay on campus if they choose to do so to live. It used to be a commuter university with no, you know, facilities. It's got a reputation for high-end research and development, and it gets a lot of federal money as a result of that, competing with UVA and other more established universities. So they need to be nimble, they need to be flexible, they need to go where the customer is and where the need is. And I wouldn't overlook Northern Virginia Community College either, because it can be a real engine. You know, at one point, they were the largest community college in America. They're in the top 5 for sure. And they have a lot of capacity to help us train people where we see, you know, gaps in skill sets and hiring. And that includes certainly technology. So I think there's a real opportunity. The private sector working with the education community in identifying those opportunities and those needs and finding solutions, and working with both our governing body and with our state legislatures to make those investments. At the federal level, I can weigh in, obviously, and if there's federal money involved, I can try to secure it. But at the end of the day, because of our state university system and land use, of course, being a local issue, we really need, you know, a set of visions coming out of the state-local cooperation, because I can't impose that on localities or the state, even if I wanted to. October 29th, 12:30 p.m. Who knows? I mean, you know, from my point of view, getting it to this point, if we have to wait till November or December, I'll wait. But here's the thing, it is going to open. And it is part of the metro system. And people will ride it. And we just, as I said earlier to Rob's question, I mean, but we've also got to figure out how we as a community, political, business, citizens, how do we maximize that asset? Make sure it's working. So much is at stake now that we've made this investment, that it work, that it pay off for us in easing commutes, in improving quality of life, in generating the right kind of development that enhances the desire of people to want to move here and live here. And you know, you look at younger generation, they don't want to own cars. They want to work somewhere they can use transit or, at worst, Uber. So employers are going to be attracted to this corridor because the future workforce demands it. So we can take advantage of that too. So the sooner, you know, from my point of view, the sooner the better. I wish it had opened several years ago, but I'll tell you this, no matter when it is, I'm going to be there with bells on. Thank you all so much for having me here today. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I do want to say just very briefly, really appreciate this focus and this discussion, very good back and forth. I think one of the things as we see the Silver Line finally expand out, and it's starting to dawn on, I think, a lot of folks in the rest of the region, that the Silver Line really opens up the Dulles Corridor as an entity unto itself. That, yes, we're going to be seeing people getting on trains in Herndon going into DC or going into Arlington. But even more so, we're going to see people within the Dulles Corridor going to other places in the Dulles Corridor. And that's something I think it's important for us to realize, those of us that live here and work in this corridor. So I would encourage you all to be thinking that way and to talk that way, because that's the way people are going to be moving once we see this getting opened. And it does open up all sorts of exciting things. So thank you very much.
I heard a rumor that a lot of the places in Tyson's Corner, when the Silver Line opening, is going to have many openings so that they can entice the people from Loudon and Western Fairfax to come to Tyson's. So we're going to see a lot of activity, and it's going to be very positive. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce you to David Kelly. He has been with the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority since 2010. David serves as the Director of National Business Investment. During his tenure at EDA, David has covered numerous sectors for national business investment by supporting software, government IT, data analytics, and cloud companies. Before joining EDA, David held a number of managerial and leadership positions in a business development career that spanned over 25 working years with major technology organizations such as Alcama and the Corporation for Open Systems International, which established the Open Systems Interconnection Model, a foundational concept for the Internet and telecommunications that is still widely used today. Please welcome David Kelly.
Thank you, Georgia. All that means is that I'm very old. I could have listened to Congressman Conley all day. We've had a long-lasting relationship with him. He was the head of Providence District, the Board of Supervisors, and he's done quite a few things. And my predecessor, Rodney Lusk, is now on the Board of Supervisors in the Lee District, which is going to be changing its name. But he is right with regard to Tyson's and what it's done in Tyson's. Still, when you walk in Tyson's, there are some areas where you're playing Frogger with your life, but overall, it is starting to become a walkable city, and that's due to the metro. There's a great deal to talk about with major business expansion in Reston, and I'm excited to go over all of these things with you tonight. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority and what we do. Our role as a state-chartered Fairfax County government-funded economic development organization is to attract companies in to Fairfax County and provide a wide variety of services to help companies stay and grow here. This includes identifying office space, connecting them to incentives and support job growth, publicizing the exciting work they are doing, and incorporating them into the business and ecosystem and our community as a strong part of the region. And really, when we're working with these companies, we work with small, mid-size, and large companies. The large companies usually get a lot of the press. The small companies are what really excite us. When we go in and we meet with a company that is 4 people strong, and they're in a townhouse, they're in their basement, they're in a garage, and now they're 200-300 people, 500 people, 1,000 people. So that really gets us going and excited about the things that we do. I just wanted to go over a few things with regard to what is going on with the Silver Line in the Reston area. But before I do that, Congressman Conley talked about how the younger generation doesn't want to drive. And I have someone in our office that doesn't want to drive. She does want to get her driver's license, and I've been teaching her to drive. She just wants the license. She never wants to drive ever, except for just as far as getting her license to go, because she takes the metro everywhere she goes. And so that's something that we're looking forward to, because there are quite a few of the younger generation. I do have a niece that does not drive either, and she will never get a driver's license, and she's able to get around. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the office real estate along the Silver Line, and then the key companies and announcements we have had, and then further developments. As a headquarters, tech, and international hub, Reston-Herndon corridor is expected to continue its growth, especially with the anticipated opening of the Metro Rail Silver Line Phase 2. Over 12 million square feet of office space is in the pipeline, all concentrated within a mile of the Silver Line Metro station. And I was just at a site selector conference in Richmond this past week, and 12 million square feet of office space is unheard of right now that's in development around the United States because of the pandemic, but we are seeing people wanting to go back to the office, so that's fantastic news. There's 1.1 million square feet of office space delivered by Boston Properties, Reston Town Center Next project, adjacent to the future Reston Town Center Metro Rail Station. And Fannie Mae and Volkswagen have anchored this project. And actually, Volkswagen, the reason they took that spot was so people could fly in to Dulles Airport from Germany, get on the metro, and be at their place, as well as finding hotels close to them. So new offices expected soon from Comstock's Reston Row project, Brookfield Properties, and Haley Rise project. Some of the office projects to monitor in Herndon when the Metro Rail Silver Line opens, there are 3 of them. The Innovation Center, which is 500,000 square feet, the Arrowbrook Center, which is 600,000 square feet, and Woodland Park East, another 500,000 square feet. So I'm going to talk about the existing companies, the existing market, and the company presence that we have along the line. The Reston-Herndon corridor has over 35 million square feet of office space, close to a third of the total office market in Fairfax County. And again, that's amazing because as we're seeing office space kind of go down in major metropolitan areas such as San Francisco and other areas, we're growing in this area. We are home on this corridor. We're actually, Fairfax County is home to 9 Fortune 500 companies, but on this corridor there are 6 Fortune 500 headquartered: Leidos, SAIC, CACI, General Dynamics, NVR, and Beacon Roofing Supply. As a major tech hub, several tech firms have a large presence along the corridor, and I'm just going to name a few of them. But Microsoft added 400,000 square feet and 1,500 jobs in their new space, and that was also tied to the Metro line. Google, over 100,000 square feet near the Wheelie-Reston East Metro Station. And Facebook, now called Meta, also took space. Amazon Web Services, the East Coast headquarters, you know, we started working with them, they had 28 people. They have several thousand people now just in Fairfax County. So that's huge growth. Qualtrics, they bought a company called Clarebridge, which was in Reston. They've taken 85,000 square feet right at the Metro station, and they were looking to leave. They're a company that's headquartered in Utah. They were looking to leave this area, but once they found out that they were right on the Metro line, they decided to stay and expand. Starkist moved its headquarters from Pittsburgh to the Reston Town Center with 24,000 square feet. Blue Origin in the Reston Town Center has taken 32,000 square feet. And the last one I want to talk about is CACI. They moved their headquarters to the Reston Town Center to be close to the Metro. And they're really looking forward to being open because they're seeing most of their employees are going to be riding the Metro, and they took 135,000 square feet. Now, being situated between Dulles International Airport and DC has made this corridor an attractive location for a lot of international companies. I'll just name 3 that really took space here because they could land at Dulles Airport. Dulles Airport was having nonstop flights to the countries that they were from. So we have Airbus, America, U.S. headquarters is here. Volkswagen Group, U.S. headquarters is here, and Rolls-Royce. And as Governor Connolly was talking about, people are not only working here, but they're also living here along the line. And so we're seeing a lot of residential and retail support to support the office market. So employees are looking at a 24/7 mixed-use experience with amenities on-site or within walking distance and convenient access to Metro. So Reston Row will have a 290-key JW Marriott hotel, close to 400 residential units, and about 70,000 square feet of ground floor retail on the block currently under construction. And Haley Rise has 380-unit apartment building that's going to open up at the end of this year, as well as 80,000 square foot Wegmans, which is scheduled to open in 2023. So really we're seeing, and Herndon is doing a great job. They have a residential development of 1,500 units that they're looking to have. So we're really seeing that this is a work, live, and play area, and we're very excited about that. And with that, I'll turn it over back to George. Thank you very much.
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Bill Buweri. He's a son of owner and CEO Christina Buweri, and literally grew up at Reston Limo. In 2016, after studying business administration and programming at Shenandoah University, Bill started his career at Reston Limousine. Competitive by nature, Bill was quickly drawn to the charter sales, and within months, he had surpassed most of the longest tenured sales representatives. 4 years later, in 2020, Reston Limo had come off of the most successful 3-year stretch of charter transportation and sales in its 30-year history. But also, in 2020, that it was when COVID hit and the charter business was reduced by 99%. Bill transitioned to the shuttle operations side of the business to target consistent, long-term projects and found success with distribution centers and construction projects. Presently, Reston Limo has produced the highest charter volume in its company's history, and shuttle operation is looking to make a strong comeback. With the Silver Line opening, it will make a huge impact in this area. Please welcome Bill Buweri.
Thank you, Georgia, for the introduction, and to the Chamber for having me. As a small intro, again, my name is Bill Buweri, and I work as the Director of Sales for Reston Limousine. To answer a frequently asked question, we are not just in Reston, and we do not just do limousines. Our company first started here, however, in the Reston Town Center in 1989 with 1 driver and 1 limousine. We're now headquartered in Sterling with a second office in College Park, Maryland. But Reston obviously still remains near and dear to our heart. We now have a fleet of 250 vehicles, ranging from sedans to full-size coach buses, and about 400 employees. Only 2 limousines, though. We've transitioned away from that. We specialize in everything ground transportation and have 2 distinct sides of the business, as Georgia was alluding to, charter transportation and shuttle transportation. For those unfamiliar, charter can be defined as needed, one-off services such as one-way transfers to the airport, weddings, wine tours, even 1,000-plus attendee conferences. On the flip side, shuttle can be defined as long-term, consistent, fixed route services in which we are operating same or similar routes on a daily basis. These markets for shuttle vary, and the need is fairly rare, but the majority of our operations specialize in residential, employee, university, construction, and federal environments. Obviously, I think everyone here on a macro level understands what the Silver Line opening does to local businesses here and strengthening their reach. But on a macro level, I can provide some insight on to how it helps a local business here, specifically the transportation industry. For our shuttle side, when any metro stop opens, it directly impacts this side of the business in a very positive way. More and more, we see companies and organizations looking to provide their employees with last-mile transportation, essentially metro stop to their offices and back once the workday ends. Currently, we operate about 90 different shuttle routes, with many of those routes being metro-related for employees or residential buildings. Some of our biggest operations include GMU on-campus transportation for their students, which we've been operating for over 2 decades now, probably our best partnership, and a somewhat newer partnership with HIT Contracting we connected during COVID for various projects, including construction of many local data centers here. With organizations looking to explore these options for last-mile shuttle transportation, which are long-term by nature, unlike most of our business, which is charter, which is as needed, one-off, and very hard to forecast. It's extremely beneficial for us, as with long-term projects, we can forecast and provide consistent work for our drivers, which is obviously invaluable in the success of any business model. As a bonus, it enables us to hire here targeted hiring for local chauffeurs who sometimes stray away from charter work, as it can be seasonal and inconsistent. Candidly, shuttle operations played a huge role in keeping us afloat when COVID hit, so anything like the Silver Line that can really drive the interest or need for a shuttle service, such as the Silver Line, always benefits our company and industry tremendously, and we are very excited for its opening. In closing, I'd like to tee up Robert Goody, who will be speaking after me. Robert has been spearheading a project that I'm very excited about. It's called Link RTC. It's going to bring a daily metro shuttle service to employees, residents, and visitors within the Reston Town Center. And Reston Limousine is very gracious of the opportunity to partner with the association on this, and cannot wait to see it come to fruition. It's been almost over a year of planning, really. So, thank you.
Our next speaker is Alex Hancock. He is an Executive Vice President in the Mid-Atlantic Region Office, Tyson's Corner for Transwestern, one of our premier sponsor. With a broad background in tenant advisory services, Alex serves in multidisciplinary role providing corporate representation and agency leasing services, including leading the third-party leasing efforts for BXP at Reston Town Center and Howard Hughes Corporation at Downtown Columbia, two of the premier mixed-use developments in the Mid-Atlantic. Alex has been involved in over 2 million square feet of office leasing despite the global office leasing headwinds resulting with COVID-19. Please welcome Alex Hancock.
Thank you all for having us here today, and thank you all for your contributions towards the Silver Line. We're very excited about the Silver Line in Reston Town Center. Notwithstanding what Georgia said at the start, we've been busy the last couple of years, but have a lot of work left in office leasing in Reston Town Center. So to give kind of the perspective of Reston Town Center, and part of the reason that we wanted to chat about it, it's probably the highest density of office space as well as employment on the Silver Line Metro in Reston. What you're looking at there is an older drone shot of Reston Town Center, the greater Reston Town Center, which has about 5 million square feet of office space. 5 million square feet of office space equates to about 16 to 20,000 employees. So that just kind of tells you, demonstrates the mass that we have in Reston Town Center. Obviously, on the top right of that is the RTC Next project that David mentioned, where Volkswagen Group of North America came, as well as Fannie Mae. As well, to Congressman Connolly's point earlier, we do have mixed use coming there. We've got about 500 new units, a 32-story multifamily tower coming there. Top center is what is in top center of all of our company's minds right now. That is the Reston Town Center Metro Station. Over the past couple of years, we've been fortunate enough, my partner Joe Ritchie and I have been fortunate enough to help BXP lease about 3 million square feet of office space. In most of those dialogues, I would say all, but I'm sure someone would correct me. In most of those dialogues, there was a conversation about Metro. Unfortunately for us, there was a station that we could point to. However, the date has been a little bit elusive to us. People have asked us, despite kind of the press and what people hear about office space right now, why we've been successful over the last 3 years. There's what I would say 3 demand drivers. The first of which is the access to talent. Our area has an unbelievable workforce, an unbelievable STEM workforce at that, both highly educated and very highly specialized as well. The stat that always sticks out in my mind is that in the cybersecurity industry, which is a burgeoning, obviously, industry in our area, there's 0.6 qualified job applicants for every qualified job opening. So when you look at that, there's a very true war for talent, and we see it firsthand in Reston Town Center walking the streets as we see recruiters out from Peraton and Leidos recruiting their fellow colleagues. Much of this demand comes from the Western reaches of Fairfax County, eastern reaches of Loudoun County. The area that I've kind of circled that's not a circle, that I've outlined in red there, just to the west of Dulles Airport, north and west of Dulles Airport, is actually the highest concentration per census tracts. It's the highest concentration of STEM workforce on the East Coast. So we've got a very high density of people living just in those areas that I mentioned that are outlined in red that work in that very highly competitive industry. When we look at Reston Town Center itself and we look at the companies that are headquartered there, many of which you noted, David, thank you. We have SAIC, CACI, Peraton, Leidos, Bechtel, FireEye, Metron, VW Group of North America, Fannie Mae's Global Technology Headquarters, some of the premier blue chip companies in the world, not to forget Microsoft and Facebook as well. So the first, I would say, demand driver that I mentioned was definitely the war for talent, the access to that talent and giving the talent the place that they want to be. This is a chart that I love. It basically shows the performance of mixed-use assets. As Georgia said in her introductions, I'm fortunate enough to work on Reston Town Center, but also downtown Columbia in Maryland. These are very well-performing assets because they're on mixed use. The retail is at the base, the places to go for happy hour, the places to go for lunch with colleagues and to collaborate are right there at the base of the office buildings. As we look at a return to work, our market in general is unfortunately lagging the rest of the United States. But what we're hearing on every tour with every company, be it 400,000 square feet like Microsoft or 2,000 square feet like some of the small companies that are joining us in Reston Town Center, is they want their employees back to the office. They want to collaborate. They want to innovate. And one of the ways that they feel they can do that is bribery, is to bring them back in for cocktail hours, lunches, happy hours. So if you look at the performance itself, we're about 400 basis points. If you're on a mixed-use environment, your vacancy rate's about 400 basis points lower than a comparable Class A building that has very little serving it. So the numbers are real. And then there's what I call this 2B. I think this is my second demand driver, but the first was the flight to the amenities. The second is the flight to quality. We're at the highest levels in 15, 20 years of companies when they are relocating, going to nicer, newer office assets. This makes intuitive sense as we kind of explain it to people, but it's those people that might have, in our terms, 20,000 square feet in a greenfield development that say, we don't quite have the same numbers in our office anymore, we can take substantially less, we can pay substantially more and go to the nicer buildings in the area, the buildings that have the commitments to health as well as to the environment. Demand driver 3, and then I'll leave it there, and this is probably the most important and the reason we're all here today. Demand driver 3 is the metro station. So we're close to talent. We have the amenities at the base of our buildings. We have new buildings. What else has helped us is being able to point out the Reston Town Center metro station. This is a map I love of Reston Town Center and really kind of shows a historical perspective of performance of metro. So Tyson's overall, and these numbers vary slightly, but Tyson's overall is about a 30 million square foot market. That's the same as Reston Herndon. So Tyson's overall is 30 million square feet. Overall, it's got about a 17 to 18% vacancy rate. Within a half mile of metro, which is the blue, and I made the colors like almost exactly the same, so the further ones. Within a half mile of metro station, we've got about 12.5 million square feet of office product in Tyson's. The vacancy rate's about 300 basis points lower. Within a quarter of a mile of metro, which is what we would say is walkable in Tyson's, but we're not playing Frogger to get across the street. Within a quarter of a mile of the metro station is about 7.5%, or 7.5 million square feet of office. The vacancy rate is 11%. That does include a new development on top of the borough right now, which is fully vacant of about 400,000 square feet. So excluding that, we're in single-digit vacancy rates in Tyson's within a quarter of a mile of metro. So you begin to look at that and you say, and to Comstock at Wheelie, Reston East as well, They're very well leased up, and they're obviously within the quarter-mile metro as well. So we start to look at these historical perspectives and understand that not only have we seen the success in the last couple of years, but we'll continue to see that employment success, those companies coming to our region, into Reston Town Center once the metro delivers. Obviously, a very important point in Reston Town Center is getting from Metro to Reston Town Center. So I'll let Robert Gowdy speak about that. Thank you.
Last but not least, for the past 7 years, Robert Gowdy has served as the Executive Director of the Reston Town Center Association, the governing association for the Town Center. He has been the Vice Chair of its Board of Directors for the previous decade. He is also very involved in other aspects of the community, serving for the past decade as board chair for Tefra Institute of Contemporary Art, formerly the Greater Reston Arts Center. He is on the Public Art Reston Board and was a founding member. He is a commissioner with the Virginia Commission for the Arts, and he also serves on the board for Cornerstone Housing Corporation. Please welcome Robert Gowdy.
Yeah, I'm going to tap into a couple things that, Jerry Connolly said. How do we do a good job of exploiting or maximizing this massive public-private investment in rail? And then what Alex was just talking about, in an expanding Reston Town Center and an ever-growing Reston Town Center. I mean, we're going to double in size in the next decade and a half. How do we do a good job of knitting that together? This starts really back 10 years ago when I was part of the task force that was involved with helping rewrite the County Comprehensive Plan in anticipation of rail coming here. We had as one of our guest speakers, Paul Goldberger, who's the architecture critic at the New Yorker, among other famous occupations. And he said, this is an awesome plan that you all are working on, but let's be real. It's all pivoting on one key fact. You have an unbelievable downtown already that's the envy of places around the world. Indeed, I entertain international delegations from Hong Kong, Japan, Australia, Korea, all coming to say, how can they replicate what we've done in Reston Town Center? And so you've got this great downtown, but it's going to expand now with Metro. And the single biggest priority you have is how are you going to be able to bring that downtown south to the Metro station and make sure that everything is connected. And so one of the things that we talked about in the comprehensive plan quite a bit was this idea of shuttles and connector buses, making that happen. And so that is what we've announced in the last month, Link RTC, which will be the new RTC shuttle. You see our logo down there in the lower right. We just rebranded this past year. And one of the things we like about that brand is the RTC dot architecture. It obviously signals the downtown, but that is an architecture that we can then cut and paste as we signify other assets that are part of the RTCA constellation. And so you see the way we've redeployed that now with Link RTC. So this is the new shuttle route. Starting obviously at the Metro, we'll go up to Discovery Square, which is the Microsoft building, down to the new RTC Next opportunity, the VW Fannie Mae, over to Town Square Park and Explorer Street, up to, of course, the core of the current urban center, the Fountain Plaza and Pavilion area, off to the Hyatt, and then back to the Metro station. We will run 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 7 on those days. Everything will be free, and we will do this in such a way that there will be no longer than 10-minute intervals at stops. This will be the van that we will use. Starcraft Bus is the largest producer of shuttle buses in the United States. It will be completely ADA compatible, 14 seats. This is what it will look like when it is fully wrapped with our new artwork. Stops will have signs right there that will be very simple. You'll be able to scan that QR code, go right to our website, be able to download our app, get all the additional information you need. Our operator is Bill queued up, Reston Limousine. We are very, very proud and pleased to be able to partner with a local and regional leader, indeed a national leader. A national industry award winner as Large Operator of the Year a few years ago. Many people don't realize that they, in their 4th decade of service, are one of the 10 largest chauffeured fleets in the country. And so we, as a leader in Reston Town Center, would naturally want to partner with a leader. And we are very happy to have found that with Reston Limousine. To achieve our 10-minute intervals, we will run 2 vans simultaneously throughout the day. They will do 16-minute 2-mile loops. That's 48 minutes per van. That gives us 12 minutes of buffer for each hour for those vans to deal with traffic and other unexpected possibilities. This will get us to that 10-minute interval piece. The vans will stop at each stop for at least a minute and a half so that we stay on that and no van runs up on the other. We will have a phone app that will be part of this. It's built in with the Ford system. These are Ford vehicles. It'll allow us to do push notifications on when the shuttle arrives at your stop if you choose to queue that up on your app. It will also provide notifications if there are any disruptions to the service. It's open APIs, which is great for our commercial tenants, because as our developers and landlords build out apps for their office spaces, we'll be able to tap this right into those apps because of the open APIs. And we will be able to white label it as a Link RTC service. This is a link to our website. Any of you want to scan it, you can scan it right now. It'll take you right to our website. It's live, has full information, including schedules and everything that we'll be doing, ridership rules. And our governing authority will be the RTCA board. A lot of people don't know who RTCA is. We are the governing association for the Town Center District. There are about 50 properties that make up the Town Center, both residential and commercial. Interestingly enough, commercial properties account for 85% of the assessment in Town Center. That assessment goes to fund things like our design review board capacity. We manage some common assets. We do covenant enforcement. And part of our charter is transportation demand management, which is how we get to the shuttle service to help keep Reston Town Center connected as it grows. We do have, all of this is being done, by the way, voluntarily. Our principal commercial properties in the urban core and extended urban core have opted in to create this service, all being funded privately. Importantly, we will have the opportunity for other properties to opt in as the service grows. They will have to consent to the cost-sharing agreement that is part of this service. We get asked a lot, do you ultimately intend to bring this district-wide throughout the town center? And the answer is yes, we would love to do that. Let's see how this service goes. Let's see what demand is. Let's see what the potential for it is. And over time, this may be something that we will take throughout the Reston Town Center District. When will we open? We will open when Metro opens. When is that? Does anybody have that? Yeah. You've all heard that today. I mean, the best we're hearing is sometime in November now, right? They've talked about that the safety protocols that they have to go through. Randy Clark just mentioned last week that he thinks they'll be done with that the end of October. So best guess, sometime in November, not October 29th or whatever was said earlier. But who knows? I mean, we're a little bit nervous with what Metro has said with the fact that the 7,000 fleet is not coming back and there's short inventory now to run sufficiently throughout the service. So will that impact Silverline? We have been told repeatedly that the lack of 7,000 inventory coming back will not impact the opening of the Silverline. So we hope that is true, but we are in the dark like all of you, waiting on pins and needles from when the day will come. I do want to highlight the quote from Walter Alcorn. I don't know if he's here now, but I think this is a terrific quote. He was part of our media package when we rolled this out. And yeah, creating another multimodal opportunity to connect the town center, getting people out of cars. These are things that everyone in our community should support. And that's why we are doing this, a free amenity for our community. And with that, I'll say thank you and look forward to seeing you on the shuttle, taking advantage of Reston Town Center.
Well, thank you very much. That was wonderful. I had a couple of brief comments. I don't know if I'm going to go to a long Q&A, but one of the things, if you noticed, Alex, Bill, and then Maddie, who is helping Congressman Conley, I like to see the younger folks. Can I get a round of applause for some of the younger folks around here? So thank you so much for being part of it. And I challenge folks to bring your younger folks to the chamber events, right? Chamber isn't just you have a double ARP card and you can come in. This is about looking forward to the future and building a community. Alex talked about where all those young workers are, right? The cybersecurity experts. Those aren't 55 and older typically. And they're expecting more, not more money. They want more things. They want to see the corporate social responsibility, ESG, right? So you look at some of the things we do in the chamber. Friday Night Live, Laura does Friday Night Live. 28 years of giving back to the community. Not only putting on a free concert, but it's all the money that we donate. This Thursday, if you have a chance, it's the 20th anniversary for our Hispanic Business Reunion. Again, giving back to the community, recognizing who we are as a people, and lots of other opportunities. A brand new minority business grant that we just awarded just 2 weeks ago, right? Reaching out, trying to help other parts of the community. That's what we need to do. We need to be thinking about reshaping what a chamber is and how we work. This is exactly the kind of environment. Some of the things that'll offer us a challenge. Let's start thinking about people with disabilities. Mark Hegarty's here from Melwood. People with disabilities. Didlake just joined the chamber. How do you get around? This opens up a whole new opportunity for people with disabilities to commute, to get to work. Think about hiring somebody with disabilities. And they're all different levels of disability. So challenge yourself to think about, if you don't have any, put 1, put 2. It's not a percentage, but think about adding some folks with disabilities. Think about affordable housing. The good news is you see your property values going up and how much it costs. We've got to be thinking about our low-wage workers. Who's going to make the beds? Who's cooking the food? Who's helping out in this hotel? It's people that need affordable housing. Looking at our workforce housing. This is something that doesn't just happen. We need to be thinking and planning for it. Back in the late 1990s, when I was getting ready to retire from the Air Force was planning the future, 2020. The Air Force, remember the Air Force 2020? We were like, no way, Air Force 2020. It's here, right? You got to be thinking and planning about the future, and that's what we're doing as part of a chamber, is planning what the people are doing, where they're going to be, and positioning ourselves. So I'm really proud of what we've done with both the Greater Reston Chamber and the Dulles Chamber working together. We also partner with the Loudoun Chamber. We go down to Richmond and talk about these very issues. So get active and involved, and I need your help. We just had a wonderful conference on workforce, thinking about the future of the workforce, techs and trades. We can't build this future infrastructure if we don't have techs and trades. Think about healthcare, what it means to have mental health professionals. What do we do with our STEM workers? This is something we got to begin to make the investments. Joe talked about the education. That's critical. We start thinking and pushing for it. So we got to be thinking about the workforce. I want to think about the property committee. We have Ignite Property Committee, trying to position ourselves for residential as well as commercial commercial properties and where to live, work, and play. We have the Metro Line, right? The Silver Line Committee that Georgia leads. This doesn't go away. It doesn't stop once the Metro line opens. We've got to continue to build because we're not done figuring out this infrastructure and where the rest of the folks go. How do we balance the affordable housing? How do we balance the residential versus commercial as we move forward? And also, we've got international business. We just planned out next year for some wonderful opportunities. You heard about the international businesses that are here. We've already been doing international business for, 4 years now, with literally ambassadors that would come in from DC, and we do Zooms around the world with different time zones based on where they are, because the international businesses are here. And the gateway to the United States is actually through Dulles Airport, and they come here and they like it. So I'm so proud of what you've done for the top Fortune 500, but instead of 1%, let's try to make it 10%. Work with our chambers to try to help get more people here, because this is a great place, and we'll launch into the future as we go forward.
From the very beginning, the strength of the organization was volunteers who were giving their time and energy to make the airport all that it could be.
For 55 years, we've been advocates for transportation infrastructure for the airport and the region.
I have an article that's in the memoirs of Hal Launders, and it says rail to Dulles in '72, believe it or not. Look how long it's taken.
It wasn't just the federal funds that were involved, local funds had to be involved. So it was a question of how was Fairfax and eventually Loudoun going to pay their share.
The landowners around Tyson's Corner finally realized that they needed rail through Tyson's.
And they came up with a special tax district for all the businesses that owned property along where the rail was going to be.
That concept went on to phase 2 of Dulles Rail with the Dulles Corridor tax district.
We worked with other organizations to encourage continued support from the business community and the state of Virginia in their participation.
We spent time in Richmond lobbying for what we were trying to accomplish. We did position papers on local and statewide issues and testified before local and state agencies and the legislature.
Going down to Congress and meeting with congressmen and women down there to try to make sure that they heard our voices and knew how important this was.
The Committee for Dulles has become an important part of the community. Elected officials rely on us, the public relies on us. We're able to see issues and educate people about land use decisions, economic development, and other growth potentials for the airport, which are going to benefit all of us.
Well, it's been a terrifically consistent in its advocacy over time, supporting both the airport, rail access, road access to the airport, the growth of cargo traffic, and the growth of passenger traffic.
During my term, they were just beginning or just in the middle of construction for the phase 1 of the interchange project on Route 28. That's something to celebrate. We worked on that for years. Now that project is complete.
We worked very closely with the Smithsonian to try to do whatever we could to ensure that the Air and Space Museum become located in the Dulles corridor.
The official announcement of the building of the Air and Space Museum was done in May of 1999 by Admiral Ingen, the head of the Air and Space Museum, and he did it at a Committee for Dulles luncheon. In fact, there was someone that was in attendance when it was over that donated $1 million to the Air and Space Museum that day.
We have maintained or gained international recognition from markets outside of our country. Most famously is the Frankfurt Airport.
We met with teams from Geneva, Switzerland, who wanted to know how a community organization can help the airport. We also met with teams from Paris, France, about how to connect two airports and citizen engagement and public advocacy to the benefit of the economic development of a nation's capital's airports.
When you look at the airport itself, it's tough to think about 12,000 acres as having a sense of community. It's an awful large area. It's a huge amount of land area, infrastructure, employees, but every event that is held either by the authority, by the airport, or through the committee events, you really get a sense of pride and contribution to the community.
Our events are there to promote and foster the growth of Dulles Airport and to keep the communities aware and educate them on the future economic development of the airport and its environs.
If it's a luncheon, or if it's a gala, or if it's another event, you'll have a significant representation of the various industries in our region, and it gives us an opportunity to share not only what we do, but how we can help them.
I asked the question, is there any way we could leverage this group to help the community? And that's when the Committee for Dulles Community Outreach was born.
Number one priority would be to give scholarships to deserving high school seniors.
Every year we give 15, 20 plus scholarships to students, all who are connected to Dulles Airport.
And then we also supported the Interfaith Chapel and the Travelers Aid organizations at the airport.
100% of the money that the outreach committee raises goes back to the community.
Whether it's the Community Outreach Scholarship Fund, or the Run on the Runway, or the plane pool, you really get a sense that this is a tight community that supports itself.
The relevance of the Committee for Dulles is more important today than ever because of the growth in international business and the growth in data centers in this area. We have become an even bigger economic engine, and not just the airport, but the services that are around the airport and all of the national and international companies that have headquartered here.
Okay, here we are. We've accomplished so much. What is it that we want to accomplish working with the airport, how do we move forward as a partner with the airport?
The pandemic, in my mind, forced us to be more creative, forced us to be more innovative, and to move forward with the way that we touched the community.
Obviously, with the pandemic over the last years, there's been some erosion in passenger loads, passenger frequency, flights, and what have you. So there's the opportunity to try to continue the path upward to the ultimate capacity of the airport, which I'm told is in the range of 55 million passengers per year.
And as you have more planes, it can impact residential areas to a greater extent. So we are a strong supporter of making sure that our local communities do not enact land use decisions that put people in the flight path of oncoming or departing airplanes. That's something that we try to work on, as well as the ground transportation for access to and from the airport beyond rail.
We still see a continuing role for Committee for Dulles, someone who's looking at the airport and always trying to think, how can this get better? How can we improve Dulles to become part of an even bigger part of the Washington economy?
My expectation is the Committee for Dulles will go on for many years to come.